Okay, so I'm going to go over how we export textures from Substance Painter ready to use in Unreal efficiently. Okay, and I'm just going to use Wingy's bird for this. So, what you guys probably did is you went to File, Export Textures, and then, sure, maybe some of you did Sketchfab, maybe you went down and you clicked, where is it? For PBR metallic roughness like this. And then if we click our model here, this drop down menu, it gives us a list of textures that's going to export. If we click this little pencil, it gives us the ability to change the file. So I asked for TGAs, didn't I? So it's TGA there it is, TGA, and you can do that for all of them, yeah? And then you export it, and when you export it, you get all of those maps. So if I just get that up quickly, so I've already exported them. Um, There, right. So it exports all these maps. What some of you didn't do is rename those maps afterwards, right? So imagine if you were sending this to whoever's putting the environment together and every model is called material underscore albedo, okay? Yeah, it's just really annoying. We don't want that. So as a modeler, you need to rename your texture file. So it would be Seagull albedo. I won't do them all, but you get what I mean, yeah? Rename them all before we send them off, okay? And then you packaged it all up, sent it to me, and then when I put it into Unreal, I'll show you how to do that now. So you import your model, just drag it in, okay? Import your textures like this. So you've got all those textures here. What we need to do is create a material. So create a material here, call it Seagull. And then we can drag that onto our Seagull, okay? And then if I double click it, it will open up our material. So by default, you've got this node, okay? And you can see that it's got base color, metallic, roughness. Yeah, the names of your textures. So it's going to be really easy, isn't it? So I just drag that in, drag the normal in, drag the roughness in. Okay. Um, my Unreal's a little bit laggy when I record, so sorry about that. Which one's the roughness? Can't remember now. Oh, there we go. They're starting to pop in for me. That was the roughness. Got a metallic? Yeah, we do. Okay, you're just dragging from the RGB over to these nodes, yeah? And then we can even do the AO because it's got them up. Okay, like that. Click save. This is going to take a while, so I'm not editing this, so just skip forward a few minutes, probably. No, a few seconds. Save and packages. Come on. Okay, there we go. We can kind of see it on the texture there. Now, if I close that down, you can see that our seagull has the texture on it. First thing you'll notice, Wingy will definitely notice this, is that it looks super shiny, doesn't it? It doesn't look how it looks like it does in Substance Painter. Now, it's not going to be 100% carbon copy, and that's because when you're texturing in Substance Painter, it's likely you kept with the same HDRI instead of the HDRI that's used in Unreal, right? So the lighting set up differently, that sort of thing. So moving from renderers, they're never going to be exactly the same because it's not the same person creating them. It's not the same renderer, okay? But it shouldn't be shiny like this, so we need to sort that out. Now to do that, it's obviously something to do with the roughness, right? Because roughness controls how shiny a surface is. So if I double click the roughness texture, what I want to do, where it says sRGB, I want to turn that off, okay? And you can see here that it's like, oh, you can't turn that off because it will give you an error in there, okay? We're not worried about that. So we'll click save, we've turned it off, okay? And then we go into our material. Now we need to sort that out. Now to sort that out, we need to scroll down here and see where it says sampler type. We want to change that to linear color. I think linear grayscale will work as well. Click save. Again, skip. I don't know why this takes ages, but just skip through it. It's probably because I'm recording. Okay, there we go. Now if we minimize that, you can see that it's fixed that kind of shiny texture. And it's still got those rough parts. You can see that the legs are shinier and the beak shinier than the feathers, but it hasn't got that overall kind of like sheen that it did have. So there we go. We've fixed that problem, okay? And that's fine. We could leave it like this, okay? Like it's done. We've imported our textures. They'll all be named correctly, and we've added the textures to the seagull. However, as a games artist, there is a little bit of optimization that we can do just to make our work that much easier to use and that much more efficient to use, okay? And that's to optimize our textures, okay? And I'm going to show you how to do that now. So if we look at our textures at the moment, we've got 5, right? And the whatever I exported at 2048 texture sheets, okay? So all of these are 2048, right? So massive files, all of them, okay? Albedo, sure, that has all of our color detail and all the little intricate details on it. That can stay as 2048. Normal map, same thing. It's got all of those little intricate details on it. That could stay as 2048 as well. But do you think that these black and white texture sheets need to stay as a 2048 texture? They don't, do they? Right? They can be reduced because they don't have that as much information on. They're just black and white, particularly this metallic value, right? The seagull metallic is just black, okay? Like we don't even need that map really. That can be reduced right down, okay? So there's a step you could take, okay? Is you could take those 3 maps you got there, these black and white ones, into Photoshop, and you could reduce the size, okay? So turn them from a 2048, reduce the image size to 512 or 1024 maybe. It's something you'll have to play around with in order to keep it looking the same, okay? And just by doing that, you've optimized your asset, okay? Now we want to do that because graphics cards, I'm sure you're all aware, have a thing called VRAM, okay? So VRAM, virtual random access memory, which is what I think it's called, okay? And that essentially all we need to know is deals with the textures, okay? So that allows you to have a certain amount of textures, certain amount of data on your screen at once, okay? So the higher the gigabyte of VRAM, the more textures you're able to have, right? Or the higher resolution textures you're able to have, right? I can't remember why I brought up VRAM. Oh yeah, so that's why it's important to reduce these textures that don't necessarily need that much detail, okay? It's because that allows more VRAM, okay? So that VRAM can be taken up by something else, okay? Other textures. And it will just mean your game runs a lot smoother. You won't have to pop in that sort of thing. Okay, so that would be fine. Taking those into Photoshop, reducing them down. That's a good step to take. That's one way you could do it. Another way is, what if we could reduce the amount of textures we import into Unreal, right? So instead of importing 5 textures, what if that changed to 3? Okay, clears up a lot more space in terms of VRAM, doesn't it? Okay, and it mean it'd be a lot more efficient. Okay, but can we do that, and how do we do that? Okay, so yeah, we can do it, and I'm going to show you how to do it now. Okay, luckily for us, Substance Paint is great, and it just does it for us essentially. So if I go to File, Export Textures, you'll see here output template. I'm sure you've all played around with this before. If I scroll down, you'll see one called Unreal. I'm blind apparently. There you go, Unreal, and there's two, right? Unreal Engine 4 packed, and then Unreal Engine 4 SSS packed. SSS is subsurface scattering. We don't have any of that, so we're just going to use this top one, okay? Unreal Engine 4 packed. We can change our file type to targets here, which is what you guys would do. However, I'm going to keep it as JPEGs because it allows us to see the texture in my files, and it would just be easier whilst I'm explaining. But you guys would pick target, okay? Okay, you can see when we go to our little seagull tab now, can you see how it's been reduced? So instead of 5 textures, we've now got 4. But how does that work? How can we just miss out a texture like that? Well, it does include all of the textures we had before. What's great about it is that it's combined a couple of textures together, and I'll show you how that works. So if I open up Photoshop, and I'm going to quickly pause the recording, open it up, and resume again. Okay, so Photoshop's open now. So I've just stuck a random texture in here. So what you need to know is that our textures are made up of different values, okay? They can be separated, okay? So we've all heard of RGB, right? So RGB, red, green, blue, okay? If I go over to my channels tab here next to layers, you can see that it's actually split up, right? So there's the R channel, the green channel, G, and the B channel, the blue channel, okay? So that's how textures are split up. So what's great about that is that some textures don't need all of these channels. So what we can do is use these channels to store different maps. Okay, so our metallic map may be stored in the red channel, and our roughness map would then be stored in the green channel, okay, because it doesn't need all these channels. Just to show you that in Substance Painter and what it does, if we go to Output Templates and I find that Unreal Engine 4 one, you can see that it's got these RGB, all this sort of thing, and we can see here that this texture is called Occlusion, Roughness, Metallic. Okay, so that one texture, yeah, so this one here stores 3 different maps in it, and it does that through storing it in these different channels, these 3 different channels. So if I open up Substance again and go back to that, so our R channel, right, has our first one, our occlusion map, our ambient occlusion map. So that would be stored in this channel here. Our G, if we hover over it, it says roughness, right? So in our G channel, that would have roughness map. Okay, and then I'm sure you've guessed it by now, but our B, if I hover over it, says metallic, right? So if I go back to Photoshop, that would be stored in the B channel. Okay, so each one of these channels has a different texture. So we've gone from having 3 textures to having 1 texture. You can see how that is pretty optimized, right? And we can have a look at the other ones we have. So we've got our base color here. Okay, so our base color, that has color information, doesn't it? That has red, green, blue information. So that needs to use all of these channels, okay? So there's no way we could have, there's no way we could store a roughness channel, a roughness map in our green channel of our albedo map, okay? Because the albedo map uses them all, because it has that color information. However, if we go back to Substance Painter, we'll see that it actually does use a new channel, right? But this channel is called A. I haven't heard of A before, right? And this channel holds the opacity map, okay? Now what's great is we can add another channel, right? That's all it's doing. So if I click the little plus at the bottom, it adds an alpha channel, okay? So alpha A, right? A, okay? Does that make sense? So our albedo map, because it has color information, it has to use all of those channels, R, G, and B. It has to use red, green, and blue. However, we can add a new channel. We can add an alpha channel, okay? And in that alpha channel, we can put another texture, okay? And in the case of the Substance Unreal export, it's done opacity, right? So if we had an opacity map, Wingy doesn't on his seagull, but if you had glass or something like that, that information would be stored in the alpha channel of the base color. Hopefully this is making sense, okay? Normal map, you can see that normal map uses RGB, so it can't use anything else. We can't store any other maps in it. And emission's got its own one there as well, because it's RGB, right? Emission is color, so there's no way we can split that up. So you'll notice that the one that we have been able to split up, right? The occlusion, roughness, and metallic, these are all grayscale maps, okay? They have no color, they're just black or white. So that means we can split them up. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Now, I'm going to export it and I'm going to show you how to sort it out in Unreal. So if I click here, let me save it somewhere else. Okay, that should save. Let me just check them. Okay, hasn't exported them. Why? Because I haven't clicked export. Brilliant. Okay, so there we go. It's exported them all. So you can see that I've only got 3 now, as opposed to 5. You can see how that's way more optimized, right? You can see that they're weird colors, okay? But that's fine. So if I go to Unreal now, we're going to drag those textures in, minimize that. I'll tell you what, we'll make a new folder. When we're making folders, right, you'll notice that we can't put a space. So if I after space, it gives me an error, okay? We want to use underscore, okay? Textures. Okay. Now, if I drag those in. Okay, tell you what, I'll make a new material for it as well. So right click, material, seagull, new. Drag that onto the seagull. Okay, now we'll open up that one, close these old ones. Open it up. Okay, now we can just start dragging them in. So this was the base color, so we can stick that to the base color. Okay, RGB. We go back to Substance Painter. Everything's loading. Oh my god. Right. Right. So our base color uses the RGB here. If I go to Unreal, I'm gonna hook up. I'm gonna hook up the RGB to base color. Okay. If I go back to Substance Painter, the alpha channel, would store the opacity if it had one. So if I go back to Unreal, oh look, we've got an A, right? So that A would be joined to the opacity. Okay, now if you can see that these are grayed out. If we had an opacity map, what we'd do is click this node, scroll down or scroll up to where it says, looking for blend mode here, set to opaque. We'd change ours to translucent or masked. So if I just change mine to translucent, you can see that the opacity is now available. So I'll drag the A to opacity like that. But we're doing the seagull. Wingy doesn't have an opacity map, so there's no need to hook that up. Our normal map just goes straight to our normal, which I can't see. Where is it? Why is our normal one? Oh, it's probably because we're on that blend mode. If I change this to masked, we'd probably have wrong one, wrong node. Yeah, if I change it to mask, yeah. So we want to use mask for opacity instead. So we'll drag the A down to opacity mask. Okay. So I'll drag my normal map to the normal. And then this one here, the one that has 3 textures into it, remember how they're split up. So if I hover over the R, ambient occlusion. Okay, so back to Unreal. The R would be dragged to ambient occlusion. Now I know that G is roughness, and therefore B is metallic, right? Just to prove it, G roughness, B metallic. Okay, job done, almost, right? Job, so we're done. I can save it. As I'm saving it, just skip through it. Right, see how it's done? However, we've still got that shininess, okay? So remember what we did before with our grayscale map? We double clicked it, didn't we? We turned off that tick box there. That affects our material. So we need to change that to linear color. We'll be fine. Click save again. Okay, minimize it, and you can see, job done. Our seagull's sorted now. Now, hopefully, this has given you a little bit more insight into what we expect and how we expect you to export textures from now on. You can see that we got the same result both ways. However, this second time, by using those different channels to store different maps, we're able to use less maps, okay, and therefore it's a bit more optimized, okay. That's it, that's the end. I want to see you use this for your models now.